Hi, 12th Avenue. I'm Ben Coltrane. I'm here with Susan Hall, and we are celebrating 29 years of service plus 4 years of volunteer service here at the church. And due to the pandemic, we're only having a small ceremony here at church with staff and close friends and previous work people. But we are doing a card shower for Susan, so if you haven't sent in your cards, I'm sure she'd still like to receive those from you. We want to give you a chance to hear from her today since we're not able to have the larger ceremony. So Susan, if you would, tell us what it has been like here at 12th. Maybe start with, what was it like when you first started?
Well, Richard and I came to the church in 1982 when our oldest was still nursery. At that time, the church had a pastor, a youth pastor who had just been hired, a part-time secretary, and families took turns getting the buildings ready for Sunday activities. So that was the extent of the staff. A few years later is when I started my volunteer work. I became the treasurer in 1985. I'm sorry, 1987. And so that was 4 years before I actually came on staff. Those years were really interesting because the financial situation of the church was not good, and the record keeping hadn't been done very well either. There's lots of stories related to that which I won't go into right now. But anyway, the only building we had at that time was the West Building. Attendance was 75 probably. That was on a good Sunday. The pastor's office was one of the baptistry rooms. The secretary's office was the other baptistry room. We had one adult Sunday school class that met in the basement over there. And then the children's classes met in the little rooms off the nursery. So that was it. So it was not what it is today.
Wow. You mentioned there's lots of stories. Can you pick maybe a favorite memory from here at TUBC?
Oh, favorite memory. Well, when I started on staff, we had a pastor and a youth pastor, and then I came on. We would start every day praying. And I think that's one of my best memories, is just being able to pray for the needs of church family members and for, the things that were going on here at church. The other thing that I really fondly remember is working with the volunteers that we had. It being a much smaller organization, we knew each other really well. And so we had some devoted Monday morning volunteers who would come in and help us with what we used registration pads in those days, and they would go through them and replenish them for next Sunday, and we just had a real, we just really enjoyed that time, and having them willing to come in and help whenever needed.
Very cool. Good deal. Maybe talk about one of the most unique things that you've been asked to do in your years on staff here at TBC.
Well, there's a lot of unique things, but not so much that I was asked to do this one, but when we didn't have the large staff that we do now, and didn't have Jordan and Ben and all these people to help with physical moving of things, one time on a day that the worship team was supposed to practice, this was in the south building, the new building, and the worship team was supposed to practice, but that day the screen that we have decided not to function. So they weren't going to be able to get to the equipment back behind the screen. So we called Scott Rote, who is a very handy guy and so willing to serve. We called him and he came over but didn't get here until everybody was gone but me. So I helped him. We hauled platforms over that were stored in the East Building. We carried platforms over there. We stacked the platforms up on the stage. He climbed a 12-foot ladder, and I got to hold the ladder and pray for his safety while he was up there and repaired that. So he got it fixed, and so that's one of the fond memories of, of something a little unusual. And Scott and so many, volunteers that have been willing to come and help when they're called. So
Awesome, getting the job done with maybe some unique tools.
yes.
What's the favorite part of your job?
The favorite part, probably in the beginning, was building a kind of the church roster. Getting addresses and phone numbers and contact information that we could share in a directory kind of thing. So that was good, and I remember when we got email, that really was something. And Laura DeWald passed away, and that was a very tough thing to go through. But we had email at that time, and Gaynell Spiller was in charge of organizing the dinner after her service, and we actually had dinner for everybody who came, so it was not a small event. And so before that, we'd always had to call people and ask them, for food and to help and so forth. But we had this new email, so we used email and sent email out and asked for help. And Gaynell commented to me afterwards that she hadn't had to make one phone call, that it was wonderful to be able to organize that way. So that I appreciated. Probably more recently, when my job has been more finance focused, I have appreciated just the monthly activities that I have to do. Tim Wright, when he was volunteer local ministry treasurer, he was a wonderful teacher, and he helped set up a system that has served me very well and has made that job enjoyable. So I have really enjoyed that, and also putting together reports for leadership, for if we have an activity or something, maybe doing a summary of expenses and so forth for that. I just enjoy that kind of work. So
nice. Very good. A lot of behind the scenes work that's changed quite a bit over the years.
Yes, it has.
Very good. And how about any words of wisdom you'd like to share with the church?
Words of wisdom, oh gosh. Well, I think a few years ago when we were celebrating an anniversary, the church anniversary is, the church is 58 years old. And I've been on staff for half of those years.
Wow.
But when we celebrated that anniversary, our theme was celebrating God's faithfulness. And I guess what I appreciate is that I've been able to see God's faithfulness through many, many experiences. When I've worked with 6 pastors, and when the first one left, we didn't have anybody to preach on Sundays, and so I remember we had an interim pastor, and during that time we had baptisms, we had all kinds of things that might not be expected in that kind of a situation. And So it struck me of God's faithfulness in just taking care of our church. And he's done that time after time. And just, you know, I've appreciated being able to be here where I could see how he's taken care of us. So I guess I appreciate that, and the opportunity now, when we're physically separated. I just feel like we all should be looking for his faithfulness in our individual lives and also in the life of our church.
I think those are great words of wisdom for us. Even though all the things are changing over the 29 years, and especially here recently, God never changes during that time, and we can rely on that.
Right,
So,
right.
good
That's
words of
great.
wisdom. Well, we want to thank you for your 29 years of service here at TBC. I know that we'll miss you. We appreciate you and all the hard work that you've done for us, and we wish you the best in your retirement.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, thank you TBC for joining us, and we'll see you on Sunday.